Hi guys, it's Fana and thank you so much for watching. Today I have a spooky Halloween doll for you. I had plans for a creepy, cute pumpkin pixie who quickly developed into something completely different. I decided to use an old doll for my stock box that doesn't have as much articulation as other dolls. Her arms don't have joints and her bodice is molded on. I really wish I had chosen a different doll because I really fell in love with this character and wish she had more movement. The first thing that I did was remove the factory paint with acetone nail polish remover and rip all of her hair out. Because this is the cheaper doll, her neck peg is also super stiff without as much movement as normal dolls. I wanted her hair to be fall colors, so I chose this gorgeous thick yarn with lots of color variations of red, brown, and oranges. I wanted her to have dreadlocks of sorts, so I just cut the hair into strips, and instead of brushing it out like I normally do with my yarn hair, I just pulled the strands apart so that they became two smaller pieces. Once I had acquired a generous bundle, I used my super sketchy rerouting tool, but I began plugging the hair into the pre-made holes in the doll's head. Because the yarn is so thick, I skipped every other hole, going around the perimeter of the head 1 or 2 times. Even when the hair was pulled back, you could still see a little bit of the scalp, so I did cheat a little bit. Rerouting the entire head would make the hair too thick, so instead I fluffed out some strings of yarn and began stabbing them into the center of the head so that it laid flat against the skull. You punch it in exactly how you would do needle felting. Please, 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 I cannot stress this enough, be careful when you're doing this. It is literally stabbing the head with a sharp needle multiple times. The next step is the face. I sprayed 2 or 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear on the head, after covering the hair, of course. Once it dried, I began sketching on the face. For my original concept, I wanted half a jack-o'-lantern face and half a cute fairy girl. First, I sketched out the jagged line for the pumpkin side with a watercolor pencil. I then completely covered the one side with orange acrylic paint. It looks super bad and patchy at first, but don't worry. Give it a few more coats until you get a smooth texture. When I'm a few layers in the pumpkin side, I use a mustardy colored pencil to sketch the face. I decided to give the doll blocky lower lashes because the pumpkin side is going to be so jagged and sharp. Once that layer of sealant dried, I began sketching the carved side of the pumpkin with a gray pencil. The reason I use a lighter color is because it's easier to erase when you make mistakes. And of course, I make mistakes. It took a few tries to get the expression I wanted, but once I did, I filled it in with a black pencil. leaving a slit for a yellow pupil. I continue to build up makeup and color on both sides, trying to use lighter yellows and oranges to give highlights on the pumpkin side, while using reds and pinks on the more human side. I felt like she was looking really flat, so I texted a couple friends, and one suggested adding some ridges to add more dimension. I'm really glad that I followed this suggestion, because it simply took a few curved lines of light tan pencil, and there we go. It was already a million times more interesting. I use yellow acrylic paint to really make the pupils pop, and then go over the black pencil with black paint, just so that we can deepen the color and make it more even. I was able to get a glowy effect by going around the yellow pupils with a pencil, making it soft around the edges and looking like there's light shining from within. Some white highlights were added to the eyes, and ta-da! The face is almost done. Although the pumpkin side is looking pretty awesome, the normal side is still flat. So I used some pastels for contouring around the jaw and some blush in the cheeks. I'm not a fan with how this turned out, but that's okay because the pumpkin side is the important side. The last thing for the face was lashes. I originally was just going to draw on lashes, but I discovered this major, chunky, thick with two C's, lashes from the dollar store that I had picked up for another doll. I had extras, so I thought they would really work for this doll. Using extra strength glue and more patience than I have, I cut the lashes into smaller, slightly more manageable pieces and began praying. I really hate doing this process, but in the end, they made the doll look so striking, so I guess they're worth it. Now that we're done the face, we can remove the hair wrap. I tried to secure it as close to the hairline as possible, but I still got some blank spots that I missed with the orange paint, so I just used a tiny brush to touch up the edges. Next is the outfit. I had this cool fabric that I wanted to make leggings with. I thought it looked a lot like vines, and I really loved the gold streak throughout. I used a pattern that I found online from Eternal Snow Kiss and began making them, hand sewing instead of using my machine like I normally do. You first sew the crotch together and then the separate pant legs. Somewhere along the line, I painted the molded torso orange. I must have missed that on the camera. Once you've sewn the pant legs, you just pull them right side out. I use a pen to help push the fabric through those tiny pant legs. Make sure you try your clothes on your doll as you go, just for fitting issues. I decided to add a thick waistband to the leggings because they weren't quite long enough for the doll. It just didn't sit right. At first I was going to make everything removable, but eventually I gave up because I got lazy. I mean, you couldn't remove the shirt, so why not just glue and sew everything else on to make things easier? At least, that's my philosophy. The leggings were really stiff and really too big, making a kind of weird footy trouser type thing. I don't know, but because the leggings didn't turn out quite how they were supposed to, this is when the doll really started taking on her own shape and completely stray from the concept. I originally was going to have bubble shorts over the leggings, like big poofy shorts that look like pumpkins, right? Yeah, that didn't happen. But before we talk about that, let's talk about hair. I decided that I wanted to wrap her hair in various different threads, wire, and braids. So I gathered up all earthy tone type things like cord, embroidery floss, and thin gold wire, and really went to town. For the wrap sections, I used the same technique that people on the boardwalk use at the beach for those fun hair wraps. My senior year in high school, I did this to some of the girls in my class on our senior trip, and even one or two of the guys that had long flowing princess hair. It was the same idea of knotting the floss around a tiny braid, changing colors to make a pattern. The wire was much more difficult to work with. It didn't really want to cooperate, but I eventually bent it to my will. Once I got it to finally work for me, I got this really cool posable strand of hair. I really wanted each section to look different, and I definitely think I achieved that. I also wrapped a braid around the base of her ponytail to cover the little elastic that was holding it back. I got these leaves from the dollar store, just in case. And well, I'm glad that I did. I started making a layered pattern, playing it out on my desk first before hot gluing them to the doll and her pants. I started on the bottom layer and worked my way up, gluing it so it stuck out from the leg as if a skirt. I worked my way around the doll, adding leaves here and there to form an asymmetrical skirt. I didn't want it to be even on both sides because I think making it ununiform just gives it a more raw and rustic feel in a way. Now the bottom of the doll was awesome, but the top half still felt really blah, and I blame it on that molded torso. God, I hate that thing. But on a whim, I decided to add some green leaves to her shoulders as armor of sorts. This I also hot glued to her. Finally, we were getting somewhere, but I was still a little bit unsatisfied. I took some of the gold wire for the hair and decided to make a layered necklace. Because I'm lazy, which seems to be a recurring theme, I hot glued this into place as well. Whatever works. By this time, I was freaking out over how much I loved her, but she still needed more. More, I tell you. I took some of my trusty gold paint, this tiny bottle has lasted me for over a year, and dry brushed gold all over the leaves, adding some wear to the foliage. It really makes it visually interesting and sparkly. It's almost like dirtying up the outfit, but not at the same time. I did the same thing to the orange bodice, which finally saved it in my mind because now it looked like cool armor. You in this time fake clothes. My autumn warrior was still missing something, so I stole some boots from a Rosabella Beauty Ever After High doll from my stock box. I really didn't want to use these shoes because I love them so much, but they fit the doll too well not to. I dry brushed more gold over the boots, eventually covering the entire thing. It was looking a little bit too much like a bumblebee to me, so I dry brushed over the fur sculpted parts with brown paint. I then went over the straps with the same brown paint and painted the little roses on the sides as well. It doesn't quite fit my autumn theme, but I feel like they really make the boots complete. Now it's time to set the scene because the doll is done. I can't get over how much I love this doll. She is probably one of my top 3 favorites that I've ever made. I decided to name her Nyx, my badass autumn warrior. I love how different she came from her concept art. I really hope you enjoy her too, because she is actually for sale on my Instagram, Fantasy Dolls. I will put a link in the description below. You can DM me on Instagram if you're interested. I really hope you guys have a happy Halloween and try to stay safe tonight. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe. I hope you have a phenomenal day and keep being extraordinary.